the fact that you will at least have him silenced and there will be no appeals?
Absolutely zero. None. Could be no farther than how we believe. I want my community support. I want that jury to make the decision, not Thompson. Not some old man who's 70 freaking years old deciding how my daughter's life weighs in a courtroom. That is not justice. That is not justice at all. I'll take my juries, I'll take my peers all day long. I'm sick of one man deciding or one woman deciding what a life's worth. So that's how I stand on that.
Welcome back to my Mental Health and Crime channel. My name is Huda London. This is all my thoughts, my speculations, my opinions. May the four victims rest in peace. Condolence to the families, and may the correct justice be served. Yesterday was a very sad day for me, and I'm sure for thousands of other people. Very confusing. The decision that was made. Brian Koberger and his team was offered a pre-deal. We don't know the reason Koberger and his defense team accepted it. And we may never know the motives. But that was what happened yesterday. I'm sure my subscribers, viewers have thousands of questions. And we remain with zero answers. Was Koberger involved? Is Koberger being threatened? Could that be possible? I personally believe that this whole case was, the whole crime scene was tampered with from the very beginning. We saw that with our own eyes. We've been paying attention, following this case. And honestly, I believe there's a lot of cover-ups. I'll be honest, a lot of corruption going on. There, I finally said it. This is all my thoughts and opinions. Why would the prosecutors offer a plea deal? It's only News Nation that is saying that it was Ann Taylor who requested a plea deal. But if you go to ABC, CNBC, and many of the mainstream news channels, it said that the prosecution team offered. This is all my personal opinion. I've been digesting this, taking time, if I could even speak to my subscribers, because this is really, really baffling. This is a disappointment. I want to know how the justice system in Idaho works in general. Now, put it this way. If I was Koberger and just say I did not commit these crimes, and they were kind of trying to frame me, nothing made sense. There was no, let's never forget, there was no blood evidence or DNA evidence in his white Hyundai Elantra. The white Hyundai Elantra they were searching for was 2011 to 2013. Koberger drives a 2015. Besides the knife sheet that could have easily been planted at the crime scene. Because let's not forget, there was many students at the crime scene before the police even came and before 911 came themselves. Anyone could have planted the knife sheath, allegedly. It could have been the surviving roommates, allegedly, or anyone there at the crime scene. Hunter, allegedly, in my opinion, what's her name? Emily. It could have been anyone. We would never know. Maybe Koberger's father spoke to him, a mother. They could have told him that it doesn't look like you're going to get any justice. You're going to get the DP in Idaho. They must have told him, just take the DP off the table. Plead guilty. At least you'll get to live. Maybe he was put in a situation where he was threatened. Those are the two possibilities I can see. That either his parents, his family, advised him, take this plea deal. Maybe you'll be transported back to Pennsylvania and you can spend prison time near us. And if he's innocent, that would be so unfair. But now we're left in a dilemma that we would never know. Koberger doesn't even have to explain himself when he takes a plea deal. He doesn't have to give a motive. If I say that Koberger is guilty, and that's the reason he's taking the plea deal, then that means I have to believe that I was mistaken, and that it was all lies of the people in mosque, people at the Banfield with injuries, the Jacks, especially Jack D, with injuries on his fingers. DM texting BF, BF texting DM. Maybe that is the reason William Thompson decided to give him a plea deal. Maybe somebody is threatening Koberger behind the scenes. Let's not forget Koberger's on the East Coast. He has nothing to do with Idaho. But all these other students, were the four alternative suspects. Haven't you noticed anything Koberger and his defense team asked for? Let's be honest, Hitler was very unfair from the very beginning. This is really heartbreaking because that means the justice system is failing their people. What happens to the real perps, the real suspects? What happens to them? They will go around. Let's not forget, it wasn't Kaylee, Maddie, Zana, and Ethan that were only the four victims. What happened to Hudson Lindo? What happened to Caden Young? What happened to Hannah Clear? What happened to Tim Reed, who was badly assaulted by the vandals? This behavior is going to keep on going on. I don't think this is the last we're going to hear from Ida Moscow. I hope this will be the final straw that broke the camel's back. But when bad behavior is not corrected, when suspects are roaming freely, and we could hear everything that was happening We saw everything that was happening at the Banfield. Saeed was watching crime scene pictures. Let's not forget that. Jovito was watching crime scene pictures. And I really don't care what people say. Other YouTube creators, but you know what? I am really disappointed that the correct justice wasn't served. The correct justice wasn't served for these 4 victims, so I can understand why the parents are upset. And the correct justice wasn't served for Koberger either. But the correct justice was served for the real suspects that were out there. Or they're celebrating, definitely. But God doesn't like evil. Sooner or later, they'll end up making a mistake and be behind bars. What about all the people in the bushes at Taylor Avenue, in my opinion? What about all the pictures everyone was watching? What about all the Venmos people were paying for? What about these masks? DM wasn't a witness, in my opinion. Neither was BF. I feel sorry for these poor 4 victims. May they rest in peace. I don't regret for a second that my researchers led me to that there were other suspects. Definitely. I don't know why Koberger took the plea deal, and we would never find out why he took the plea deal. There is something that I have been continuously watching since yesterday that I can't get over. What has happened to Hunter Johnson? There's something really not right in his interview. Emily A2. How do you move on so quickly from after what you have witnessed? It's really shocking. Why did Hunter take a knife upstairs? Did he know that the victims were already unalived? How come these people are not talking about finding Ethan Chapin at the doorway of Zana? How come Ethan's triplets seem to be so calm? Maybe that's just the way they are. I know it's been 2.5 years. People have to move on with their life, but still, I don't see much emotions, empathies, nothing going on. A lot of lack of empathy, just my opinion. I don't know, these two look like they're celebrating to me. Not even one tear. And pay attention to how Santa Claus Thompson made sure he didn't allow DM or BF at the memorial, neither at any interview. There's a reason they took a plea deal. Or maybe everything is going to be exposed if they didn't take the plea deal. Maybe this would turn out to be a big circus at court. Maybe somebody spoke to him into taking a plea deal. Otherwise, the worst of Idaho, Moscow would have come out. I told you before, I'm not surprised. Most of the students who were around Zana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee, may the rest in peace, were all from Boise, Idaho. Jack Showalter, Dylan Mortensen, Maddie's boyfriend Jake, Bethany Funk is from Nevada, but she has connections and ties in Boise, Idaho. I remember the beginning of this case when people said, oh, justice is going to be finally served. They have allowed the court to be moved to Boise, Idaho. I remember what I've always said. I believe this is where they're going to kill the case, which they did. Hitler did not look like he had any interest in the case. The way he had his hands under his cheek, like he was tired of this case. It was blatantly, every time Ann Taylor spoke, she got the worst of him. And every time the prosecutor spoke, he looked like he was speaking to his homies. Strange. May the correct justice be served by God Almighty. Let me play this a bit.
You know, you see the world in pure innocence, and that all gets ripped away from you in one phone call. That's just the day that changed it all.
This morning, for the first time, the best friends of Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle speaking out about that November day when they discovered Ethan, Xana, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Madison Mogan brutally murdered in an off-campus home.
I don't think anyone expects anything like that ever in their life to happen.
Hunter Johnson and his girlfriend Emily Allant now telling their story in a new Prime Video docu-series, One Night in Idaho, The College Murders.
We were a big group of friends. Why would you target those four?
Emily says she and Xana were inseparable.
We were attached to the hip probably the first day that we met. Yeah, we just clicked immediately. We were same personalities, I feel like.
I love it when people talk about Ethan and Xana sort of being like male and female versions of each other.
Oh, it's very much true. They were the same person.
Hunter and Emily say the fall weekend started like any other, with a big football game. The friends snapping this photo that Saturday.
It was a normal weekend for us, just hanging out with our friends.
The next morning, Emily says Dylan, one of the surviving roommates, called her concerned, asking her and Hunter to come over.
In the documentary, you tell the story of really not feeling alarmed when Dylan called you.
I joked around with her on the phone. You know, it's something you would never expect.
It's November, so I had shorts on, slides on. Like, I wasn't prepared to obviously stay there. I was just going over to check, see what's going on. I would say as soon as you get there, you know something's wrong.
Hunter arrived to King Road to discover what happened. Their friend Josie Louderin, who was also there, describing the moments in the docuseries.
As soon as I stepped in the house, I was like, oh, something is so not right. Like, you could feel it almost. Hunter was ahead of me and Emily and immediately was pushed out, and Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
You hear Hunter on the 911 call telling the girls there was an unconscious person protecting them from the graphic details.
Is she breathing?
No.
How did you remain so calm in that moment?
Truly, in my heart, I believe God was with me that day, and he gave me the strength to get through that day.
As authorities entered the home, the friends say they were told to sit outside, waiting for hours with little information.
We watched the ambulance come and we watched them immediately leave. So I think that was a hard part for sure.
That second you realize there's no one to be saved.
Right.
Why did Hunter take a knife with him from the kitchen? Why is Emily saying that she and DM were joking on the phone? DM called Emily and Hunter and Jody because she felt like something was wrong. She said she saw a person with a black mask. So why are you joking? Why aren't you calling 911 DM? Where is the blood that was found on this railings? Make this make sense. Is this the biggest cover-up ever? Is Idaho full of corruption, in my opinion? The crime scene was tampered with in the beginning. And the ambulances came and took the students. The ambulances came quickly and they left quickly. It doesn't mean that the ambulances left empty. Obviously, they took their students with them, the victims. Because the ABC reporter says that's when you knew that they couldn't be saved. So how were the victims moved before the coroner even arrived? Didn't the coroner say that that was illegal, that the coroner had to be the first on the scene? Why was she allowed at 5:30? How come I don't see any emotions on Hunter Johnson and Emily's face, in my opinion? These people were trying to convince us, shove it into our mouths, that Koberger did it. And there's nothing that connects Koberger to this case. Not motives, not DNA in his car or in his house. They didn't even tell us the results of the hair strand, the animal hair strand, and the things that they found at Koberger's apartment, his flat. I wanted to play this clip under fair use purpose. This is from Good Morning America. This is an interview with Ethan Chapin, his mother, father, brother, and sister.
But that feeling was short-lived. It wasn't long after they learned that Ethan had been murdered in a quadruple homicide that thrust the town of Moscow into chaos. And this morning, for the first time, the Chapin family tells the story of how they stayed afloat.
We just decided maybe it was best to tell our story of Ethan literally one time. He deserves it. He deserves our story of him.
This morning, as the Idaho murder suspect prepares to accept a plea deal, the family of Ethan Chapin speaking publicly together for the first time since Ethan, his girlfriend Xana Kernodle, and her roommates Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez were brutally murdered in an off-campus home at the University of Idaho.
I miss him every day. When you lose your son at 20, it's different. It's a different loss. And I miss him every single day. And I always will.
Ethan, a triplet with his siblings Hunter and Maisie, all attending the University of Idaho together. Hunter and Maisie and their parents, Jim and Stacy, now telling their story in a new Prime Video docuseries, One Night in Idaho, The College Murders, remembering their 6'4", larger-than-life brother and son.
We played every sport together. Every time we went in the car, it was together. Partied together. There was never a dull moment.
The night before Ethan was killed, Maisie brought him to her sorority formal. She now cherishes the text he sent her before bed.
So he started off by texting me, I think he said, "Dog, come hang out. We all want you here." And I said, "I'm going to bed." And then he said, "Love you." And I didn't even respond to that. I think I was asleep by then.
And the I love you kind of stood out, though.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Hunter, who pledged Sigma Chi with Ethan, says the next morning a friend at the fraternity woke him up saying the police were at Xana's house.
Hunter Johnson came up to me and said, I was like, "Where's Ethan and Xana?" And he's like, "They're not here anymore." It's like, "What do you mean they're not here anymore?" He's like, "I think they were murdered last night."
Hunter was forced to call his family with the news, his parents in disbelief.
It drives me crazy because I've always wanted to protect my family. And there's really nothing there that I could have done. Instantly he was taken.
A suspect, Brian Koberger, arrested nearly 7 weeks later. With a bit of relief, the Chapins shifting their focus to their son's legacy, gifts to honor him.
We all benefited from having Ethan in our lives for 20 years. It's a tremendous loss.
Where was the triplets that night? Why isn't there any pictures of the triplets together besides the picture between 8 to 9 p.m. at the Betty Ball. What happened after? Look at Maisie's face. Actions speak louder than words. Why do I feel like this is all staged? And Hunter Johnson called Hunter Chapin, and he just said that, I think Ethan and Zana have been unalived. How could you think? You're running around Hunter Johnson with a knife, running upstairs. Didn't even mention that he saw Ethan on the doorway of Zana, and you're calling Hunter Chapin and saying that I think your brother has been murdered. Don't ever forget what Stacy Chapin and Ethan's father said. They said 2 a.m. is the hardest time for our family. And look at Maisie's face. Why does Hunter Johnson and Emily look so happy? They have moved on like nothing happened. Dylan Mortensen and Emily Ant were cracking jokes before Emily Ant went to 1122 Kings Road and found the 4 students slaughtered. I'm not buying this. I feel sorry for Coburg. I feel sorry for all the 4 victims and their families. And this is all my thoughts, my opinions. It's sad that we would never know the truth. Coburg could have been easily threatened to take this plea deal. We don't know. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's a sad day. Sad day for the justice system. Guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Have a lovely week.